I was dead. So some days I'd just cry. And if you were brought up like I was brought up, crying was failure. So I'd cry because of desperation, and then I'd feel like a failure. I remember one morning, just to get to the letterbox and back, took so much energy that I ended up back in bed shaking. One morning I went on Radio Hauraki. Anybody from Auckland who's my age might remember a guy called Kevin Black. I went in there at 7 o'clock in the morning. Man, he was bouncing off the walls. I don't know what shit he was on, but he was on something good, you know. And he cracked a bottle of champagne. We had a glass of champagne, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I remember going back down into my car, and it was like being in a sardine can. It was like the car just closed around me, and my heart started beating, and I started sweating. And I held on to the steering wheel while I was too scared to drive. Because in my mind, I thought, if I drive this car right now, I'm going to drive off the Harbour Bridge. I'm going to drive into a lamppost at 150k and kill myself. And so I sat there frozen for 40 minutes, and then I slowly drove home, went to bed, luckily slept, and woke up and thought, shit, I'm not having champagne for breakfast anymore. That's no good for you. Totally ignored that anxiety attack. And it sort of came to a head in Buenos Aires, in the Hilton Hotel. And so I never planned my own suicide, and for that I feel eternally grateful. But I had suicidal ruminations, so I thought about suicide a lot. And the interesting thing about mental well-being and mental health is what I didn't know is part of it does three things. It takes away your self-esteem, takes away your self-confidence, and takes away your enjoyment in life. But I just thought that was me. I just thought I wasn't good enough. I just thought I didn't have the confidence to do what I was doing anymore. And so I'm living these moments, and then I'm thinking, this is too tough, because a minute felt like an hour felt like a day, and a day felt like a week, right? And so at the end of each day, with those thoughts and with the energy just to struggle through this, I remember lying in bed and the window was open. We're on the 10th floor. I'd just finished an anxiety attack, a real bad one, and I thought, I've had a guts full of this. And so the window was open. I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and run and jump out. And the guy next to me said, JK, you've got a good heart. And he saved my life. That moment in my life scared me enough that I thought, after probably struggling with this for 5 years, I've got to reach out and get help. There's a couple of things we'll be talking about today. One is prevention, right? How do we prevent this? Which is where we're working right now at Groov and with Mighty. But actually, it's an illness, not a weakness. So I walk into the doctor's office and he says to me, JK, it's an illness. I go, wow, cool, excellent. It's an illness. How good is that? It's not me. So I can actually work on this. And how am I going to work on it? And so all of a sudden I go, what do I need to do, doc? And the first thing I did, you know what it was? I accepted it. And when you're talking about mental well-being, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So doc says to me, JK, what I want you to do is go and see someone. So I'm not going to see someone. Me? Hey? What, you want me to go and see a psych or something? Are you kidding me? This is the same guy who's going to the gym for 2 hours a day. Loved a mirror as well. Hey, if I was injured, I'd put 200 milligrams of Voltaren down my gob to play footy on Saturday. But I wouldn't take an antidepressant. No way, man, don't do that. Nah, I'm all good. So she says to me, JK, what would you do if you had a tight hamstring? I said I'd stop and stretch it. And she said, okay, what would you do if you'd already stopped and stretched it, and you get up and you keep running, it gets really, really tight? I said, I'd stop, ice it, and go to the physio. She said, your brain's no different. I said, I should not. I've got a hamstring in the head. What's the ice, and who's the physio? What we don't know is actually how to implement good mental well-being for our people. So it's empowering the individual to have a daily mental health plan, right? It's understanding your mind, a little bit of the science around it. It's lifting the leaders. We don't want leaders to be the psychiatrists, the psychologists, right? And sometimes as a leader, you're a bit scared to build that psychological bridge. Why? What if they say he's unwell? We don't want you to be the psychiatrist or psychologist. We want you to be able to make it part of your day, just normal. It's just what we do here. This is how we work. This is how we build it. And the last bit is optimizing the environment. One of the greatest things that leaders can do around actually looking after your people, we talk about care at Groov, and we can go into that a little bit later, but it's really, really important that you actively listen, right? You reassure people. You check in with them. So you check in, you actively listen, you reassure them, and then you encourage them to get the help that they need if they need it. For me, the future of leadership, I've said it before, I'll repeat it, is actually genuinely implementing mental well-being into your workplace. We can't change the workloads. We can't change a lot of the stuff in our lives, but we can care for our people, make them empowered to look after their personal mental health. You can be well-being leads, and then the environment as leaders, how do you optimize the environment? You can also do stuff to really help that. And if people feel that from you, they're happier, they're more productive, and you retain good people.